Hannah, tell us where you grew up and where your love of music first began.
I grew up in Wisconsin and Michigan, Midwest girl, and I grew up listening to classic rock, 70s soft rock, and old country music, and I started performing, doing dance and theater when I was really young. I think I started dance when I was 3, and then started doing community theater when I was 5 or 6. And so I loved entertaining people. Every time my parents would have friends over, I'd want to like put on a show for them and steal all the attention. But then I started, that kind of turned into doing singing contests and talent shows, and then I started playing guitar when I was 13 or 14, and then started writing music, and then that turned into every summer I would play shows all over the northern Midwest. I'd do coffee shops and festivals and bars that would let me in, and anywhere I could, I wanted to play there.
So when you started doing singing competitions, what kind of music did you choose to perform?
When I started doing singing contests, I did a lot of Christina Aguilera and Celine Dion, just like some really, really ambitious repertoire for 13, 14-year-olds.
Go big or go home, right?
Right.
So where did you go from there? Did you find that you were so connected to the audience that you just wanted more and more?
Mm-hmm. I did. I always knew that I wanted to be a performer and that I wanted to sing. Like I really can't even think of a time in my life when I considered doing anything else, which now looking back seems crazy. But so yeah, I just loved it. I loved connecting with people. I loved seeing people's faces and their reactions when I would sing or speak or whatever. I just loved that that energy exchange. And so I just knew this was always what I wanted to do. And then when I was 17, I made a record of songs I'd written since I started writing songs.
And how old were you then?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah, and I released that, and it's kind of cringy now, but it's also fun to listen to, like, the things that were, like, I was so passionate about then, and, like, you know, which was mostly, like, boys and how bad I wanted to be a singer, and, like, it's cool to revisit those passions. And actually, if you guys want to revisit them with me, you can go to hannahbethel.com and buy that record, as well as all my other records, if you want to kind of see the evolution of the song. But so I released that record when I was 17, and then when I turned 18, I moved to Nashville.
Hannah, tell us the name of your first album ever.
The name of my first album ever is Watch Me Fly. It was also the name of the first song that I ever wrote. I learned my first 3 chords, G, C, D, and then whipped out a song about how badly I wanted to be a singer.
So what are some of the lyrics of that song that you could share with us? Do you remember any of it?
I don't even, I don't know if I remember how it goes.
The chorus, maybe?
So, oh gosh. Something about being stuck in the middle of nowhere, and because I grew up in kind of a rural town, and I was always like angsting to get out into the big city, and so something about being stuck in the middle of the nowhere, and someday I'm going to get out, or something like that.
And you did.
And I did.
It all came true.
Yeah.
Were there other entertainers in your family?
No, I was the first one. My parents love music, though, and always had music playing, and were always so supportive of me, because they could see how much I loved it, and they were like, yeah, like, do it, go for it.
They can live vicariously through you.
Yeah, but I was the first in my family to sing. My grandpa was a famous karaoke singer.
That's great.
Yeah.
What was he best at?
Merle Haggard.
Did you ever sing with him?
I did. Yeah, I did. We did karaoke a few times, and when I would do shows in Michigan where he lived, I'd bring him up and we'd do a Merle Haggard song.
That's
together.
Great.
Yeah,
I love it. What was the first concert you ever went to?
I think the first concert I ever went to was Jessica Andrews and Billy Gilman at a fair.
Okay.
And I loved Billy Gilman so much. I was obsessed with him. And me and my mom went around backstage and waited behind the bus, and he came out, and I had like this little red bandana on, and he signed my bandana. And we were like, oh, I don't know, maybe. But we were like the same age, so he was little too. And yeah, that was my first concert.
So did you watch his career and kind of take notes since he was about the same age as you? Were you intrigued about what the career looked like for someone your age?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I was young, I never really thought about like what the back end of a career like this would look like. You know, I just only saw the singing on stage and maybe the singing in the recording studio, but you know, I had no idea about the logistics or anything else that it took to get there until I was in it, experiencing it and figuring it out, you know.
It'll blow your mind, right?
Yes, it will.
What's been the biggest surprise to you about the business end of music?
Oh gosh, what a question. The biggest surprise to me about the business side of the music is probably the lack of sincerity in people. I was pretty green when I moved to Nashville. I was the oldest child, first kid to leave the nest, came from a really small town, and was pretty caught off guard by people and life in the city and people in the music industry for my first few years here. We're kind of like, whoa, I thought everyone was nice.
Thought everybody was going to love me.
Yeah, so probably that. But on the flip side, I also have met many, many wonderful, genuine people. But just learning to read the difference sooner than later has been important.
With age too, though. You know, I think that just comes with life.
Mm-hmm.
Just going through life and figuring out what's right, what's wrong, who's being truthful, who's not.
Totally, yeah, and
Genuine.
have your spidey senses tuned on so you can see it coming before it hits you.
Right. Had you ever been to Nashville before you moved there?
I had, yeah. My mom and I started coming to Nashville. I think I was 16 when we started coming. We made a few trips in the summers and played like open mic nights anywhere I could. At one point we made like little printed out flyers that said which open mic night I was going to be at that night, and then we handed them out to people on Broadway.
I love it.
And now looking back, I'm like, oh, dear God. But we were excited, and we're like, you never know who you're going to meet. So.
And you don't know who those people know.
Yeah.
Which is the great thing about Music City.
Yeah.
Is that everybody's connected to somebody somehow.
Totally. Yeah.
So is there a moment that you were on a stage that you felt it can't get much better than this? Like everything was perfect about the environment. The audience was responsive. Like, do you remember one particular show where everything really just was perfect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably one of my favorite shows I've ever played that is a place I always come back to when I'm doubting or insecure. But I used to play these country western shows when I was a kid in my hometown. And one year I sang Landslide. And it's at a big theater. It's like 1,100 seat theater in town. And I played Landslide, and I was all by myself. And when I finished, it was just like silence for like too long. I was like, oh no, like, do they hate me? And then people started applauding, and then they stood up, and I was like, oh, actually, I'm amazing. And but it was just like such a rush, you know. That's like when the addiction to that adrenaline and that exchange and that, you know, wanting to get like bigger and deeper reactions from people, that was when I was like really, really hooked into it.
So does that inspire you to go certain directions with your songwriting? When you see or you can feel the connection that audiences have to certain songs, do you think, ooh, maybe if I write more like that? Does that
totally
dictate?
I think something that a strength of mine in my writing and in my performances is my ability to create a space of intimacy and kind of like get people's attention with that, as opposed to like trying to be loud and big. I think sometimes by being like smaller but just very poignant. So that's, and I love creating that space too, and just for really, really open, authentic intimacy. And so yeah, actually I guess that performance was kind of like my first taste of creating a moment like that. Yeah.
So when you first started songwriting, would you play your songs for your friends and just get feedback, or did you keep that to yourself more?
I would play my songs for my parents.
Okay.
I guess. I was kind of didn't have much of a social life as a teenager, because I was like, no, I gotta stay focused on my career. So I'd play for my parents, and then I was really like not shy about taking new songs out to shows right away and seeing what people thought. So yeah.
So did you perform at school ever?
Mm-hmm. I did perform at school. Yeah, I did like pep rallies and different stuff. I actually played in. I won a battle of the bands at my high school as a solo artist, so that was cool.
And everybody's like, "Wow, who knew?"
Yeah, because I always had a hard time finding like kids my age to connect with musically, because I wanted to be doing this like, you know, James Taylor, like Tom Petty, kind of Willie Nelson and vibe, and everyone else was like
whatever's
like
popular
Nirvana,
on the radio,
like
top 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So then, did you find mentors in music that helped to guide you and helped you to express your thoughts and your feelings through music?
I would say, I don't know if I feel like I really have a musical mentor so much as I've just, I've written with a lot of people and interacted with a lot of people. So starting when I was pretty much right when I moved to Nashville, I dove into the songwriting scene and, you know, trying to get feedback from people who I thought were further along than me. So it was kind of like a cumulative effect of like all these different voices. But I don't know if I've really had one person to kind of help me, which I think has actually served me well, because it's forced me to come to my own conclusions. Because I got to the point where I was writing so much in Nashville and taking so many publishing meetings and getting so much, you know, different kinds of input about what I should be doing to improve or whatever. And it got to the point where I just felt like confused and discouraged, and also like I wasn't honoring my own voice anymore. So I kind of just shut the door on everything and really spent a year like not showing anything to anyone and just digging into my my writing and, you know, and my personal life, dealing with some hurt and some, you know,
Life.
doing the work. And that really was a profound year for me, and kind of reestablishing my footing and really figuring out who I am and what I want to say. And now it's like I can hear people's input and kind of take it with a grain of salt, instead of like hanging onto it for dear life because I'm trying to, you know, hook a line here.
Yes. You have to shut out all the voices sometimes.
Yeah.
And just be true to yourself.
Yeah.
What was the very first experience like writing with someone else? Because you'd spent most of your teenage years really writing by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sat down for the first time with someone else and shared your thoughts, what was that moment like?
I'm trying to remember who my first co-write was with. It may have actually been with my friend Rochelle Lene, who's still a really good friend of mine. It may have been with her, but I don't remember exactly. But it was awkward.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, you know, because for me, songwriting is super personal. And it's more about like getting that personal experience out than it is crafting a story. So it was weird. It took a while to get used to it. And now and then I did get used to it, and I felt like I lost like some honesty and authenticity the more into the collaborating process I got. And now that have kind of been out of it for a few years, like I'll occasionally co-write, but it feels weird now. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can say this until I've thought how I want to say it in a song, you know? So, yeah, so now I'm kind of back where I started.
I think it's easier to work with a producer where your song's basically done, and they're like, well, what if you did this here? And you're like, oh yes, that makes it better. But it doesn't really change the song.
Yeah, totally. I prefer a collaborative relationship like that more, because at this point, I'm no longer like searching for the thing. I feel like I've really like have landed in myself and like what I want to be saying and what I want the song to feel like. And I also want each song to be like my story and my experience, and it just doesn't make sense to be trying to write my experience with someone who doesn't even know my experience, you know?
Right.
So
I totally get it. So what life experience do you think is the most profound that comes out through your music?
Oh my gosh, probably a lot. Oh man. I'd have to say starting, so when I was in my early 20s, I got really sick with Lyme disease, and spent almost 2 years kind of with everything on hold, just getting my health together. And that was a really transformative time for me, because it forced me to go inward and really delve into my spiritual understanding of the world in a way that I never really had before. Like I'd always been like a pretty like mystical, like hippie kid, but this was like kind of like real world, like, and I was alone a lot, like bedridden. So it was just like me and just me. And,
you and your thoughts.
Yeah. So, and then that as well launched my kind of journey into natural healing. I was able to detox the Lyme completely naturally with the help of a naturopath in Nashville. So that opened like a whole new world for me, and just like, you know, food as medicine, and then I got really into meditation and yoga, and so it opened up my spiritual world, which for a long time I kept really compartmentalized from my music. So I was like, these two things don't make sense together. But then it got to the point where I realized that like neither could exist without the other. And when I like allowed for their integration is really when I found both like breakthroughs and massive forward movement in my music career, as well as like breakthroughs in my spiritual path as well. So that's been a huge part of it. And relationships are so transformative for everyone. They're our greatest lessons, our greatest teachers. So yeah.
Are there songs that you've written about relationships or about your spiritual strengthening that stand out to you?
Yeah, I would. Well, so I wrote a song called Train a few years ago. I wrote it with my younger sister, actually. It was one of my last co-writes but it's different writing with my sister because she knows my story, you know, right. And she gets it on a level that even a friend might not. But so we wrote a song called Train, and it was kind of like in the demise of the last relationship I was in, where it just wasn't working and it wasn't serving either of us anymore, but it wasn't like we didn't still love each other. And it's like, well, it just feels like this is gonna just suck no matter what. No matter what, this is really gonna suck. So wrote a song called Train, and that song, as soon as I like literally we wrote the first line of the song, and I just like knew that this was gonna be a special song. And so I recorded it and had it and then went through the breakup, and it was horrible, and had the song for almost a year. And I was trying to find someone to collaborate with to make a music video, because I had this vision. I needed it to be in the desert, and I also had like no money, but it needed to be this like cinematic, like, so I spent like probably 7 months meeting with people, trying to find someone who would be willing to work with me and my budget and this vision. And so finally I found this guy named Dawson Waters, who's a young videographer, and I met him through a friend, and he's like, sure, I'll do it. And then like a couple weeks later, me and him and his girlfriend were driving my car to Texas to shoot this video, and we drove like 18 hours straight, shot, like rolled in at 6 p.m., started shooting, shot 2 days after that, and then drove 18 hours back and got this video that was like just beautiful and everything that I had imagined it to be. And then serendipitously, shortly after that, I met my current manager, Cliff Doyle, and he helped me. Originally, I was looking for a publicist, because I'm like, I just need a publicist to help me like get this video out. And then that's when I found Cliff, and then he became my manager later. But he helped me kind of like really release this video, and then that was the first music video of mine that CMT picked up. And the song,
not only did they pick it up, they loved it.
Yeah, they
so did
like
everybody else.
So that song like really changed my life in a huge way, and put me on the road all last year. So where do you go next from there? You know, you've seen your video on CMT, which you may or may not have ever expected. And then it started happening very quickly. Yeah, it did. Yeah, and it's ironic, because I moved to Nashville when I was 18, and everyone told me that Nashville was a 10-year town, and I'm like, sure, whatever. Like, I'll be famous in 6 months tops. But it was shortly after my 10-year anniversary in Nashville that I released Train, and then everything happened. So it's kind of weird. But it's, you know, there was so much that happened in that 10 years, and so much, like, I think I really, really needed to like dig into my foundation of self, and that was going to be really necessary for me to have that like steady, sturdy place before I got started. And I'm so grateful for the way everything has panned out so far. But then I released a song called Rhinestone Rodeo, which is a kind of autobiographical song about my journey in music and in Nashville specifically. And that song got picked up by CMT, and we made a video with Dawson again that I love. It has like some kind of home video clips of me growing up playing music, so it's special. It makes me cry when I think about it. But did that song, and then most recently I released a song called "The House Is on Fire," which is another really personal song about a breakup, and it was a song that I wrote and never thought that I would share it with anyone. Like, I wrote it just to get it
Therapeutic
out, and then I was like, I don't think anybody's gonna like this, or I don't know if I want to share it because it's pretty personal. And then I did play it for my manager, and he was like, "That song's great." And I was like, "Really? Are you sure?" And so we recorded it and released it, and just put out a video for that too. And that song has done really well. It just won the international songwriting competition in the Americana division, which
I love it.
is crazy. But yeah, so it's been really validating the more that I like just allow myself to be wide open and really honest. Like, the more things come together, and in a really natural way too. So it's been validating.
I think when you share your personal story, you become vulnerable. It always helps you connect with other people. I think music is healing, and it's the way we figure out that we're not alone in the world, and we're not the only one that's experienced a certain situation. Have you had feedback from fans or followers on social media that have really connected with an individual song and reached out and shared their story with you?
I have, yeah, I really have. I've had a lot of people reach out in regards to Train and in The House Is on Fire, and just be like, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly how that feels." Or I had several people reach out when I released Train, and they were like, I'm in that right now. And I was like, oh my God, my heart goes out to you. I know it sucks, but yeah, so that's been really cool. I think one of because when I first moved to Nashville, I like really dove into being a student of the Nashville way of songwriting, which I'm glad that I did because I learned a lot. But I think there's a lot of things that I kind of absorbed that didn't really ended up not serving me. Like, like, don't get too specific with details, because then, people won't be able to relate to it anymore, or, and I think that's one of like the worst pieces of advice, because I think people love those little details. And what's more is that when we capture exactly what happens, it captures the emotion in a stronger way. And while we might not be able to relate to each other on this particular situation or this instance, that emotion, we all know the emotion. So if you can create a scene that elicits that emotion, that's where you make the connection.
Do you remember being younger and your dream of being ready to fly, but was there a song or an artist that when you listened to it, you felt it? Like, that was your life, you connected with another person's song?
Oh, a lot of artists. I'm a big feeler, so I felt everything. But I love Fleetwood Mac. I love Tom Petty. I love James Taylor. I love the Dixie Chicks, of course. Love Willie Nelson. Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to meet any of them?
No, I haven't. I saw Tom Petty though. I saw one of his last shows, and it was like one of the most amazing concerts I've ever been to. He's I love him so much.
And now there are people out at your shows that say the same thing about you.
Hope so.
What's next for Hannah Bethel? Where do you want to go from here?
So right now I'm in the very beginning stages of putting a record together, which I'm really, really excited about. I haven't released a full project in a while, so I'm so excited to dig into that. And I love the experience of creating like a body of work together and having everything have a flow. And so that's next. I'm really excited.
Anything that you are inspired to do differently that you've never done before in the creation of this next project?
I don't know. I would say I'm pretty open as far as I don't really do a lot of planning anymore. Like that used to really be my thing. Like I'm a Virgo. I like have my lists and like I have a plan of how I'm going to execute things. And I still sometimes will have like a rough outline, but I find that, you know, the more deeply that I know myself, the less I have to plan, because I, know immediately if something feels like it's in alignment or not. And then that way it also leaves me open to things that I might not have been able to come up with on my own. So, and I love the collaborative process with, recording with other musicians and producers and seeing what other people's vibe brings to the song. And so yeah, I try to just stay pretty open to the magic and the mystery of it
And let it all happen.
Yeah.
So what would you say to your fans and followers who want more Hannah Bethel right now? How do you connect to them and keep that relationship going while you're in the process of making new music?
Mm-hmm. So people can follow me on all the social medias. I'm most active on Instagram, just at Hannah Bethel, but I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. I've got a bunch of videos you can check out on YouTube. And then you can also go to hannahbethel.com. That's going to have all of my show dates, which right now are mostly live streams, but that's okay. It'll have more shows when they're coming up. And then I've also got a store at the website where you can get any of my past records. I've got t-shirts. I've got little bundles of like different crystals and sage bundles and little pins with my face on them. So you can shop if you want. So yeah, hannahbethel.com and Hannah Bethel on all the socials.
We cannot wait to see where you go from here. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it.